Hi guys, this is Cheryl from the Crafty Magpie, and I wanted to make a video today to discuss an issue that comes up often for crocheters and knitters, where we are just humming along with our project and our skein is going great, and then we come across these little fun little jewels, where we find a knot in our thread or our yarn where one skein has been joined to another to make the jumbo skeins that we so dearly love to work with. So, how do you deal with these? Because eventually they're going to come apart, as this one did. And if you don't take them apart, and if you keep working just with the knot in your work, once you put that bad boy into the washing machine, you pull it out and you discover there are holes galore, a huge gaping hole in your project because this little knot came apart. So, how do you remedy that? Well, I was working on a project today and came across this, so I'm going to show you how I deal with this issue. There are several knitters and crocheters who have put videos on YouTube about joining a new piece of yarn or a new skein, preferably in the middle of your work or your row, because if you try to join at an end, you run the risk of messing with your tension and the smoothness of your edge. So it's easier to join a new skein or a new yarn in the middle of your row, because then when you weave them in, it's less noticeable as well. So this is how I'm going to deal with this with the project that I am working on now. And please forgive me, my camera setup is not the best, but hey, we work with what we got. So this is let me move this out the way. So this is my project that I'm working on, currently knitting with. This is the test knit that I was telling you guys about. So I'm working on my row and I noticed that, oh crap, I've got to join a new thread or a new yarn. So I'm in the middle of my row, and so I don't want to go any further because this would be a perfect place to join a new yarn or a new skein. So I have probably about 12 inches of yarn that's free right now, so I'm gonna do maybe 2 more stitches, and I'm just knitting these stitches. So 2 more stitches, and as you can see I knit continental, so that's why I hold my yarn in my left hand. There are plenty of videos to show how you would do it with your right hand. I'm not going to attempt it because holding the yarn in my right hand is very awkward for me. So doing it the English way is very awkward for me because I learned to crochet before I learned how to knit. So that's why it's easier for me to hold my yarn in my left hand. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put my project to the side right quick. So I have this length from my old yarn, and here is my end of my new yarn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this new length almost half. Well, actually, I think I'm going to make it 6 inches. So let's say this is a little bit over 6, because this is about 8.5 inches right here. So I'm going to put the end of my new yarn to the right. I'm going to put the end of my old yarn to the left. And it's a little bit difficult to do this on camera, but we'll make it work, right? So here's my project. My working yarn is usually held in my left hand. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to arrange these two. Remember, the end of my old yarn is to the left, and the end of my new yarn is to the right. I'm going to measure out, that's 8 inches right there. So I'm going to pick these two up And since I hold my yarn in my left hand, I'm going to go ahead and just hold it with one, put it over one of my fingers. Usually I do it this way. It helps me keep my tension better, but for here, I'm going to just do it over one. And it doesn't matter if I twist these two together or not. It's still going to work out fine. So I'm going to, like I said, this is a little bit awkward. So I'm going to go ahead and do this over one. And I'm going to hold it right here, so I can make sure that I keep my tension. Because remember, I'm still working with my old yarn right here, and my new yarn is in my hand. So I have both of my needles in my hand, and I'm going to go ahead and go through this stitch to knit. And since I'm holding it like this, I'm going to come over here with my right hand just to give me a bit more security. And so I've got my tension, and I'm going to wrap both of those together just like that. And I'm going to hold my new yarn. I know this is confusing and it's hard to see, but I'm holding my new yarn, the end of it, right underneath my middle finger with my right needle. That allows me to keep it pretty steady. And so I just make a stitch like that. And I'm going to do another one, because what you're doing is you're knitting both of the threads together. Right, and I'm still holding my new yarn in my under my left middle finger with my right needle, and I've got both of the threads secure with my left hand over here. And I'm going to do probably 2 more stitches with them both together. And so remember, you're going to have double stitches on your next row when you come back through. So always remember that. Keep a very good track of the number of stitches that you're supposed to have in your row. Okay? Because when you come back through on the other side, you're going to work those double stitches as one stitch. Okay? So now I'm done. I've got 4 double stitches on here, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to drop my old yarn because I don't need to secure it anymore. So I'm going to drop it, and I drop my new yarn. So I've dropped my old yarn tail. Sorry about that. I've dropped my old yarn tail, and I've dropped my new yarn tail because they're both secure now. So I don't have to worry about them coming apart, right? And I'll tie them together when I come back through on the other side. But right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue knitting with my new yarn because I've successfully added it in now. I've attached it, so it's good. There's not going to be any holes or anything like that. So I'm going to keep knitting, and then I'm going to show you how to work those double stitches that I made as one. Keep on going, and then I have to purl this stitch right here. Oh, see how tricky it is. I love this yarn though. This is the Caron Jumbo yarn in Peacock Variegated. So I really, really love it. It's really pretty, and I'm gonna have to get more because out of the majority of the mass-made yarns, this one is so pretty and it's so squishy and soft. So I'm definitely going to have to buy more of this for a personal project that I want to do, or a couple of them. So I finished out my row. Alright, now I have to, and again, like I said, I'm working with circulars. So I'm going to flip over to my other side. Okay. And as you can see, I'm going to start my row. I'm going to tug on these just a little bit, make sure they're all right. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up my new yarn. And again, now that I'm back to one single yarn or one single thread, I'm going to go back to my over 2 fingers. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and I knit this entire row until I get down to the last two, and then I do a knit one through the back loop, and then I slip with the yarn to the front. So just going to go ahead and do that until I get back to those doubles, because I'll show you how to work with those in a few minutes. Again, like I said, it's a little bit awkward because the way that I have my tripod standing, it is actually in between my hands, so it makes it a little bit awkward, but it's okay. So I'm going to keep going, and you'll be able to see when I get to the double stitches, I'll be able to know, and I'll point them out to you when I get to them, but you'll be able to see when they're, because they won't be spaced out like the rest of my stitches. So here is the first one, right? So that's the first one. That was the last stitch that we made with those two yarns together, right? So I'm just going to go through and work it as one. And then make sure that it doesn't buckle that much. I'm going to pull both of those threads together, okay? Just like that. And I'm just going to do a little bit of tightening on those two as I do these stitches, because I don't want them to buckle out that much. Although there's going to be some buckling, because they're in the middle, they're not going to show up that much. And now you see we're back to single stitches, okay? So I've got this one to do and work it as one, and then I'm going to tug a little bit to bring that in a bit, and then I've got this last one to do, and again, like I said, I'm just knitting these together, and this is when they're back together, so I'm going to pull that last one all the way down so that it's nice and snug, right? Just like that. So I'm going to hold it just a little bit, just to make sure that the tension is nice. And see, I've already got this on the next one, so I just knit normally. Okay, and so just knit normally on the rest of my stitches, like I said, until I get to the last two. And by the way, this is my wrong side, so on the other side I was working on my right side. So I'm almost done with this. Three left, two left, and then knit to the back loop, bring it forward, and slip my last stitch. Now, this project is supposed to be a bit fluffy, so as you can see, I finished this row, and I'm going to show you how it looks from the front. Okay. Now, because we're knitters, we can tell how it looks a bit wonky, right? You can see where they twisted a bit. So I'll go back in when I'm done to, mess with those a bit and just press them around a bit and kind of get them to where they're not as noticeable, but right now they're not that bad, see? But again, this is a fluffy yarn, so it's going to look a bit weird right now, especially since it hasn't been blocked at all, okay? But this is how you join a new yarn, and like I said, it doesn't look that bad When you go back through and go back through, the tension will begin to ease out a bit more. And then when you're finished with the final project, then you go back through and you begin to weave your ends in. Okay. But, so that is how I deal with adding a new yarn.